welcome to Dose of Wonder. I'm Caitlin, your guide on this journey through mindfulness, mental health, grief, and personal growth. Each episode will dive into honest explorations and gentle reflections to help you find moments of calm, clarity, and a little bit of wonder too. So grab your favorite cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to talk about something we hear constantly, but often don't really stop to unpack. Burnout. This topic actually came up when I was writing for Medium a couple years ago, and it was brought up in the Medium Creators Hub, asking people to reflect on their experience with burnout, what it felt like, what caused it, how they moved through it, or how they tried to prevent it now. And when I first read that prompt, my immediate thought was, I don't think I've ever really had burnout. Turns out I was wrong. Before I get into my own experience, I want to ground this conversation in what burnout actually is, because it's become such a buzzword that it's almost lost its meaning. According to the World Health Organization, burnout is not just feeling tired or overwhelmed after a rough week. It's defined as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been successfully managed. The World Health Organization breaks burnout down into 3 specific dimensions. First, persistent energy depletion or exhaustion. Second, increased mental distance from your job, often showing up as cynicism or negativity. And third, reduced professional efficacy, meaning you start to feel like you're not good at your work anymore, even if you're trying harder than ever. And here's an important distinction. Burnout applies specifically to work. It's classed as an occupational phenomenon. This isn't about being drained by life in general. It's about what happens when work-related stress becomes constant and unmanaged. I didn't recognize myself in that definition until a few years ago. Around November and December, at the time I was juggling what I casually referred to as 3 jobs. Technically, it was a full-time day job plus 2 side hustles, or really 2.5 if we're being honest. My full-time job already had me on a computer all day. Then there was my work as a script editor for Psych2Go, which I genuinely loved. I'm fascinated by psychology and mental health, and that work felt meaningful and interesting. I was also working part-time as a temporary community manager for the meditation app Calm's Facebook group. I've used the Calm app daily for over 8 years. I meditate every day, do their movement sessions, and listen to their sleep stories every night. So again, it was all meaningful work that I cared about. And then there was the half hustle, freelance editing for vocal media writers, mostly people entering writing challenges. None of this felt bad on its own. In fact, a lot of it felt aligned and fulfilling. But here's where things started to unravel. I'd come home from my office job after a full day on the computer, sit down, open my laptop, and immediately keep working. Psych2Go, Calm, editing, writing, weekends included. There was no transition, no pause, no mental off-ramp. I was always on the computer, and I barely noticed it happening. At some point, I realized I was spending almost no time with my husband. My editing work started to feel heavy instead of fun. Tasks that used to energize me began to feel like obligations. That spark I had for my work didn't disappear overnight. It just slowly dimmed. That was burnout sneaking in. Another piece I hadn't fully accounted for was how much energy I was spending in online writing communities. Facebook groups for Medium and Vocal where I was writing at the time. Groups I was active in, groups I moderated, groups I felt responsible for. None of that was paid work, but it demanded attention, emotional energy, and constant responsiveness. At the time, I didn't feel stressed in the traditional sense. I wasn't anxious or panicked. I was just busy, constantly busy, too many plates spinning at once. And honestly, that's what made it just so hard to spot. Chronic overload doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it just feels normal, until it doesn't. Eventually, I had a moment of clarity.
I didn't need better time management. I needed less on my plate. So I started removing things. I unfollowed and left a large number of Facebook groups, even ones I liked, even ones I enjoyed. I apologized to the groups that I helped moderate and I stepped back. I stripped my social media use down to the bare minimum so I could protect my energy for the work that actually mattered most to me. That alone made a massive difference. I also uninstalled a bunch of apps from my phone and turned off most notifications. I stopped letting my attention be constantly hijacked by things that weren't actually urgent or important in the context of my life. And the effect was almost immediate. I felt lighter, like invisible weights had been lifted off my shoulders. I had space to breathe again. I didn't feel like I was racing the clock all day. I could focus. I could enjoy my work again. A little while later, about a year or so, I stopped working for Psych2Go, which I was disappointed by, but at the same time also grateful because that also gave me more time to bring the life back into what I cared about doing, and eventually brought me to Substack. What this experience taught me is that burnout isn't always about doing work you hate. Sometimes it comes from doing too much work you actually care about without boundaries, especially when everything lives online and follows you home in your pocket. Burnout isn't just about hours worked, it's about cognitive load, about constant availability, about never fully disengaging. So I'll leave you with this question. What digital weight are you carrying that you could set down? What obligations, notifications, or background demands are quietly draining you of your energy without you realizing it? If you've experienced burnout, I'd genuinely love to hear your story, what it looked like for you, what helped, what didn't. And that's it for this week's episode. Next week, I'll be talking about the rule of thirds and how you can use it to pursue your dreams without burning yourself out in the process. Until next time, thanks for listening, and don't forget to live with a dose of wonder.
In the stillness, we begin.